All right, guys. Next one is Kim says, "Hey Bradley, does changing the primary category always trigger re-verification? No, not necessarily. If it's a significant category change to something that wasn't relevant or related to what it was previously, then yes, it typically can trigger re-verification. But I've done a bunch of changes where I changed the primary category to a very closely related category. For example, in the tree service industry, the two primary categories are tree service and arborist and tree surgeon. So arborist and tree surgeon is one category. Tree service is the other category. Generally, tree service is the primary category, and arborist and tree surgeon is an additional category. Um, I've experimented a little bit with testing that, changing that out, swapping out the primary category, and I've not ever had it trigger re-verification for that because they're so closely related. They're almost interchangeable, those two categories. Hopefully that makes sense. I just also, it was crazy. I wish I could show it, but I don't want to show the client. I have a painting contractor client who's been on and off as a client of mine since like 2013. He was literally one of the very first clients that I ever landed when I opened my agency, and they're in Charlottesville, Virginia. And anyway, last year he had suspended SEO services with me, and then went with some niche specific agency that's supposed to deal with only painting contractors. This is funny. This is a funny story. That's why I'm telling. So he went with some niche like boutique agency that supposedly only does marketing, digital marketing for painting contractors. And he spent a pile of money, had a new website designed, even though he had just had a new website designed within the previous year. No shit. He ended up allowing this niche agency to talk him into buying a brand new website design, and that they knew how to get results for painting contractors, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, long story short, a year later, he contacts me and says, "I don't know what the hell I did, but I hired this other company and now everything's screwed up. We used to, for years, we were at the top of maps and we got lots of leads. And now for the last year, our leads have been steadily declining. And now we're not even showing in the maps 3-pack at all anymore for any of the keywords. Bradley, can you help?" So I got on a conference call with him and his webmaster and then somebody that does video and like social media marketing for him. And when we got on the call, I had run a local search grid report, Bright Local suite of reports, so that I could have the data analyze and review when we were on our conference call or the Zoom meeting. And so the first thing I noticed was that the primary category by this other company was changed to painting, not painter. The primary category for painting contractors is painter. And they had changed it to painting. Painting, from what I understand, as a Google business category, is like local business, like category for like a painting, like an art display for a historical painting. From what I understand, that's what it is. And I could be wrong. But in any case, I knew that the painter category was the most appropriate one. Why? Because if you looked at every other painting contractor that was ranked for those types of search queries, it's painter, not painting. And so that was on a Friday. This was about 3 weeks ago. And it was on a Friday that I had this call with them. And while I was on the call with them, because I was still a manager of their Google business profile, they had never removed me. So I said, well, listen, if it's all right with you, I'm going to change the category while we're on this call to painter. And he said, sure, go ahead. Well, on Monday, I reran the reports, the Bright Local reports, and they were all, boom, right back into the #1 position where they always had been. So it was that. And by the way, it didn't trigger re-verification. That's why I started to tell you that, because we changed the primary category from painting to painter, and boom, it 3 days later, and that's all it took. It might have within hours or minutes even jumped back into the maps 3-pack. I don't know. It was 3 days later before I reran the report. But it just goes to show you that Google business categories is critically important, guys, to have the appropriate category selected and add any additional category that may be relevant. But just to get back to what you were asking about, does it always trigger re-verification? I don't. From what I understand and from my own experience, I have not seen it, as long as it is a relevant category change. If it is a non-relevant or something completely different category change, then yes, it can trigger it. And that is not to say that changing it to another relevant category does not or will not trigger it. I'm just saying I've not experienced it. Okay. My primary category is moving and storage, and I want to change it to movers. Your thoughts? That should be okay. That should be fine. And in fact, that's actually a really good, I'm glad that you brought that up, because I was actually talking with doing an audit for somebody else. Yeah, for one of my link building clients earlier this week, I did an audit, and that's something that you should be testing with, is movers because movers is a category, or mover, and then the other one is moving and storage service. And I know because I just did an audit for a moving company earlier this week. That's why I'm saying this. And I was saying I don't know what is the better category. Most movers are going to have movers as their category, or mover as their primary category, but it might be worth testing moving and storage service as the primary category. And maybe that's what you did, and you want to try to test with mover. And that's a good sound strategy, in my opinion, guys, is to test these things, right? If you have two very similar categories and you have the ability to, on one location, change it to, like in this case, moving and storage service, and on the other location, have it as mover, and then track the results and see and then, you can always change the category out and then see, does it rank or perform better by having this as the primary category or this, right? And that's, again, guys, why I keep saying to everybody to go into a single industry, because these are all the kind of tests that you have to do. And there's so many things that you can test. And it's hard to do that across so many different, multiple industries. I'm still learning how to best optimize for the tree service industry, and I've been doing that for 10 years. And in the last year, I've really learned a lot just because I've done a ton of testing. But again, that's why I don't recommend doing that across a bunch of industries. Pick one and go deep. So I don't think that should cause a problem. Again, do not hold me to it. Don't anybody quote me and say, well, you said it would. No, I didn't. I said I've not experienced that when it's a very similar category that's being changed. I'm not saying it can't cause a re-verification. I've just not seen that. Okay.